Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is an author making their official debut here on the Wandering Scribe show. Now, having spent years as a freelancer in the tabletop gaming industry, writing short stories, rule books, and supplements, and working on various other creative projects, our guest today took a new step in 2024 with his debut novel, A Walking Nova, and joined the ranks of novel writers. He has since published two more sci-fi novels and two fantasy novels, and is currently working on his first urban romantasy project. He enjoys bringing new ideas and adventure to the page, inviting eager readers to lose themselves in the characters and their stories. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause to our guest today, author David Marin. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome, David. I'm so excited to have you here. Now, before we dive into this interview, would like to share with the viewers and listeners the book we'll be talking about, because viewers and listeners, you're going to love this book. Just the title alone is going to get you hooked in.
Yeah, I have one right here. The first book in the series is called How to Assassinate a Wizard. And it's book one of the Magica Archives series. And book two is already out, How to Deceive a Wizard. So yeah, those are the books.
Nice. Very, very nice. Now, David, let's start at the very, very beginning. So from your bio, you've been in the creative industry for a very, very long time. I mean, you worked on tabletop games, rule books, and a lot of other creative projects. But I'm very, very curious, what sparked that creative bug in you from the get-go? What is your aha moment?
So I thought about two moments. First of all, about 5 minutes after the first person put a pencil in my hand, I realized that words could do a lot of things. And so that was one of my earliest moments of they could make people laugh and cry. And I did that as a kid, and it was fun. But really what sparked creativity in me was I had a sixth grade teacher who knew that I loved to read. And he gave me what I would consider a pretty advanced book for a sixth grader, even at the time. It was the first real sci-fi novel that I read. It was The Puppet Masters by oh goodness, now the name is The Puppet Masters. Same guy who wrote Starship Troopers. Anyway, Heinlein. That's what it is. Yeah. See, on the spot. Anyway, I read The Puppet Masters, and it completely just for some reason, having read anything before that, that book just opened up something new in me. And so that kind of started me writing stuff that I hadn't thought possible before.
Nice. All right. All right. So now let's move forward in time a little bit before you get into, the creation of your books. So you start off with short stories and working in the tabletop gaming industry. How did that come about? Were you always interested in those growing up, or was that from another moment in your life?
Growing up, I got exposed to a lot of things like role-playing games, specifically through a birthday party where my friends were playing the Star Wars role-playing game from West End Games, the old D6 classic version. And that one just, it combined Star Wars, and it was a game where I could do whatever I wanted to do. And then when I went through college, through high school and college, I was like, I love writing. I'm going to keep seeing where that goes. And after college, those were the jobs that started to appeal to me. And so about 2008, 2009, I got my first freelance gig contract. And that kind of just went on from there.
Nice. Amazing. And then, of course, jump to 2024. That's when you started writing your full-length novels, beginning with, of course, your sci-fi series and then your fantasy series. Now, this is a fan question that I've been getting a lot from a lot of my viewers and listeners. And one person even messaged me on my website. And they like to hear your thoughts on this, David. How do you, as an author, this is okay. I'm going to try to word this as best I can because it's a very, very lengthy question. Ultimately, this viewer would like to know, has your style of writing differed from changing from the sci-fi to the fantasy genre? Because as from what I've noticed in reading those as a reader, it's slightly different in terms of like tone, prose, or is there a difference between the two?
And there's some thunder there in case the mic picks that up. The thunderstorms. Yeah, it actually is quite a different, at least in my case, quite a different voice as a writer. My sci-fi books, two of them are very serious type military sci-fi, far future type stuff. And I had to very much tone down a lot of the, I guess, natural humor and banter that usually put into some of my other writing, and kind of make sure that it stayed consistent tone-wise with the genre. That being said, I totally cut loose in my book Cosplayer, which is, I call a humor sci-fi book, which is about aliens hiding out on Earth at fandom conventions. So,
okay.
Yeah, so it was one of those, the story dictated a lot about what the tone was like. And then going into the fantasy books, I created a character that let me explore more of the, banterous side of, hey, look, I don't like these rules and I don't like the way you guys are doing this, so I'm going to do this my way. And I would say probably a bit more of my own personality came through in the fantasy books.
All right. And speaking of your fantasy books, let's dive into those really quick. Now, as you began writing your fantasy books, I'm very, very curious, what ultimately was your goal going into this series? And secondly, what was a promise you're making, not just to yourself as the author, but also to fans of the fantasy genre?
So I wanted to stay true to something that I've always felt about fantasy, is that in contrast to sci-fi, which is hard sci-fi and space opera, they establish their rules early on, and a lot of those rules can't be broken, about the universe in particular. Fantasy gives you an ability to take a look at the world around you and say, no, I want to change that. I think more so than many other genres, it makes it easier to do so. The old joke, a wizard did it. Well, yes, but you make it a little more interesting than that, hopefully. So kind of, if I was to say I had a promise going in, it was that as I established the problems that my characters would face, they would never necessarily feel like there was nothing they could do. Could they always win? No, obviously. But to a certain extent, if all hope is lost, that's a nice literary, device to use. But at the same time, we as humans, I think, never really accept that. And I think that's what comes through in fantasy a lot more easily.
Absolutely. And so on the topic of fantasy, what really surprised you about writing in a fantasy series of your own just after getting, off of the sci-fi train for a bit?
Really, it was establishing the physical world. Not necessarily the world building itself, but the physical world of, okay, I've set this part of the adventure in this place, and now it's not mutable anymore. Now it's not just up here, it's on the paper, and I have to give it some life. And that, I think, surprised me a bit, just because I realized that I had to work on making sure that the world felt as stable as possible, so that there was some ground underneath the reader's feet and they kind of didn't get lost in the ether, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Now, here's another fan question from one of my viewers. And this fan says, they say the cover always grabs the reader. I argue it's the title that grabs the reader. How many trials did it take for you, David, to really find the right title for your fantasy series?
So a lot is the short answer. My my sci-fi books had their title before I was done with the first few chapters. How to Assassinate a Wizard did not get its title until I was almost done with edits. I was very late in the process. And that, as a writer, that actually kind of was frustrating for me, because giving something a title gives it an identity. And this story kind of did that in reverse for me. It told me what its title would be rather than the other way around. And for me, it was to get a little just, philosophical. It was a turning point for me, because I realized, okay, the story is beyond me just a little bit here, because it's telling me something instead of the other way. And it was a real wake up moment as a writer.
Nice. And probably my favorite fan question that I love asking my viewers: are you a pantser or a planner?
So I always say, if I have to answer that in a binary manner, I am a pantser.
Oh my goodness.
But what a complicated question.
It is. I think we all start off as planners, but as we write the story, we become pantsers. And I'm noticing that myself from my own writing. And I've completely veered off the outline that I set out for myself,
Oh, yeah.
which, sometimes does happen.
Well, my educational background actually is, English literature and writing. And, so in school, they taught me the correct way to write, anything. And I do not write that way.
All right. Now, this may border into spoiler-ish territories, David, so feel free to give as little as needed.
Okay.
And these set of fan questions talk about the characters. So in both of your that the characters themselves feel authentic to the world, as opposed to being caricatures that we see in other fantasy stories.
So first of all, the video cut out there for a second. So would you repeat that question, just so I know I heard it all?
Yes.
It's actually cutting out again.
It's here. So.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Kind of. You broke up. You broke up again.
Why do this to me now? You were fine the whole day. Okay. Let's see. And a little bit better, or
you keep coming back for like a couple seconds at a time. Still cutting out a bit. Yeah.
Okay, let me try this. There's also another reason why I love doing pre-recorded interviews, just in case of this. Okay. Oh, wait, I think I got full bars. Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're back now. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just make sure to cut that out of the original. Okay, so as I was saying before all of that, so these next set of questions are fan questions about characters, and they may border on spoilers.
Okay.
So the first question: when writing your fantasy books, how did you ensure that each character felt authentic?
Your Wi-Fi does not like this question.
Wait, I got full bars. Can you hear me now?
I can for now.
Okay. So I'll try again.
Okay.
When writing the characters, how did you make them feel authentic?
So one of the things that I wanted to make sure I did was think about ways that I would respond to situations and then immediately discount those responses, and think of alternate responses to situations. Because if all the characters responded to situations like I do, then they would feel just like different versions of me. So that was the first thing that I really did to try to, I kind of had a little side chart going on about how would each character react to this or that. And it became a little exercise actually. And so I just kept trying to check the characters versus that kind of matrix.
Nice, very nice. Second fan question: favorite and or least favorite characters throughout the books?
It's not spoilery to give a name out, but if you're reading the first book for the first time, you want to look out for the character of Reyna. She will show up unexpectedly on you and become a character that you just didn't see coming. She's one of my favorite surprises in the first book. My least favorite character to write anyway, ends up being the old guys on the council at the Collegia Magica. How many different ways can you write old, stodgy, just, mean guy? There's 9 of them, and I had to come up with a way to have different mean guys. So in some cases, they became my least favorite because I had to kind of one up each one of them and make them more mean than the next one.
Nice, very, very nice. Oh, I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi. It wasn't not like this bad at all today. Can you still hear me? Kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, I am just nervous of something's gonna happen. Okay, I'll just have to make a lot of notes in this. So, okay. So thank you so much for sharing that, David. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, going forward from that, I'm very, very curious. As you were writing, not just your fantasy books, but before that, your sci-fi books, when did you let people know that you were embarking on this new journey of yours? I mean, I imagine friends and family already knew you were already in the creative sphere because, you work in tabletop games, you've written short stories in the past. So they already had a sense of your creative outlook.
Mm-hmm.
But when did you feel comfortable telling people that you were working on something bigger, full-fledged novels?
As I remember with the first book especially, I kept it to myself for quite a while. Mostly because I didn't know what it was going to be at the beginning. It started out as an idea and I said, how far can I take this? And when I realized it was going to be a novel, I said, this is pretty cool and I kind of want to keep it to myself for a minute. So, but by the time the third or fourth one came around, people were like, so what's your next novel? But that first one I got to kind of keep to myself for quite a while. And that makes it special among the rest of them.
Nice. Very, very nice. Now, this one I love asking authors because it's a question I used to ask back in the day. I'm so glad I'm bringing it back. And it's kind of jumping ahead a little bit. So, judging from your collection of books, you absolutely love, the Star Wars genre, the fantasy genre, and the sci-fi genre as a whole. I mean, looking at the other little desk right next to you, which has so many books, it is absolutely insane and incredible. So I'm very curious. Are there any books or authors in particular that have really left their mark on you that may have inspired your style of writing or your approach to writing?
One of the earliest writers that I started reading as much of his stuff as I could was actually Michael A. Stackpole. And he's written in Star Wars. He's written a bunch of fantasy series. He's written in the sci-fi universe BattleTech for years. He was the first author that showed me it was possible to not be pigeonholed into one type of writing. He was really the first one that I noticed, hey, he sounds different in Star Wars than he does in his fantasy novels. And that really intrigued me. And I carried that through later as I started going from genre to genre, realizing it's okay to change a little bit about how you write. So yeah, as far as early influence, Stackpole definitely had an edge there just because of how versatile he was.
Nice. Very, very nice. Excuse me. Now, let's talk about reviews. I know authors dread the reviews. I know it's ironic. We always ask for reviews. We welcome reviews, but we're always hesitant to read reviews. Now, when you published, the first book in the fantasy series and then more recently the second one, To Deceive a Wizard, what were the reviews like for your fantasy series?
Well, fortunately, they have been very positive. There have been a couple of comments that just kind of catch you sideways about well, why didn't this character do this, or I didn't see that coming and I didn't like it. I actually love opinions like that. That's great. Thank you for caring enough to tell me you didn't like something. That tells me it still made an impact. It's the readers I don't hear from that I actually cry about the most, because they're the ones that I neither pleased nor displeased enough. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about a set of questions I like to call the reflective side of being an author. And we'll start with the first icebreaker question or questions. Now, these two questions have always plagued authors from the beginning of time. And that is, of course, the dreaded writer's block and imposter syndrome. For you, David, how do you handle and manage these two very prominent things that impact a lot of creatives?
So, yeah, writer's block is one of those things that I didn't really encounter until I started writing novels, because a lot of my writing before that had been contract and gig based, always on a deadline. So I couldn't afford to have writer's block as a creative when I was working in that capacity. With novels, it became a new experience for me because it didn't matter if I knew exactly what a scene should be. If I found that if I just didn't know the first 3 words I wanted to say, it could delay me a whole day, because you've got to find the correct 3 words. That's for me anyway. As far as imposter syndrome, wow, yeah, that comes in so many different shapes and sizes. It can come in the form of nobody likes my book, so I should just stop, or as simple as I just can't believe I wrote that. How did I do that? And it's sneaky. My wife actually has a phrase called sneaky hate spiral, where it starts with one little negative thing and then it just kind of spirals down and down and down. And if you learn to identify that, you can fight it, but sometimes it gets you. That's why it's the sneaky part. For me, it's been a lot of trusting other people instead of the voice that's in here, or voices as it usually is. Trusting other people and saying, no, I value the opinion of these people, my friends, my supporters. There's a reason I value their opinion, and I need to learn to trust that.
Well said. Well said. Now I'll talk about probably the biggest thing when it comes to being, an author in the digital age, and that is, of course, social media. And it's almost insane how social media has changed the publishing industry in the last 20 years or so.
Oh, yeah.
Because, when social media was in its infancy with even Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and everything else, people thought, oh, we won't need those for, for marketing, for building our online presence. We'll have our newsletter, we'll have our website, and that's what we'll use. Fast forward 20 something years, and it's almost unheard of to be an author in the digital age and not have an online presence in any shape or form. And a lot of people, a lot of others that I've had on the show have expressed that, you know, not everyone's very tech savvy. Not everyone wants to continuously post about, what they're working on
Right.
or their, newest project. They like to keep that hidden. But when we do reach that point that we are known in the indie community, in the writing community, it almost seems impossible to ignore. And that also heightens our writer's block and imposter syndrome. So I'm very curious, David, for you, when you began, establishing your online presence with your social media and promoting your work and not being bogged down by the loud noise of the internet, what has disciplined you to stay true to yourself and not forget the reason you embarked on this new journey?
Well, wow, that's a lot of layers there. But if I had to narrow it down to just a couple of things that social media I think has done for me, it's that and I know this is a little generic, but I'm not alone. There's a ton of authors out there who are ready to support each other. And the truth is, most of us are very awkward socially, and we wouldn't walk up to each other in a room. But we do walk up to each other on social media. We do interact with and comment with each other. We slide into each other's DMs and talk about this or that. So from my experience, it's served to break down a few barriers that I think a lot of authors share, is that we don't want to seem like we're pushing ourselves on other people, and social media can help buffer that feeling. Also, there's the whole, it's sometimes easy to get engagement, but then turning that into followers can be very disheartening. And it feels like you're screaming into a void sometimes, and you're like, people are just tired of me talking about my books. They're tired of hearing about it. So it kind of dances in and out of the whole imposter syndrome thing too. When you get an interaction that blows up and you're like, wow, this is great. I just had so much, likes and comments and all this kind of stuff. And then your very next post is just crickets. It's, you don't know what's going on, and we probably never will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now let's talk about probably the biggest elephant in the room, especially now in the modern publishing age. And that is, of course, AI in the industry. Now, I've talked to a lot of people on this subject. They've given a lot of their thoughts and feedback on this. And if I throw my 2 cents in, AI is here to stay. We can't get rid of it no matter what. And I know a lot of people have said, we need to be against AI. And absolutely, generative AI has no business being in the publishing industry, what have you. However, with that said, we can't say we're totally against the use of AI, because spell check, grammar check, that is AI. And we just have never acknowledged it, but it is. Secondly, and this actually was something that brought to my attention from a previous guest, is the AI witch hunts that I've been seeing in the indie community, which is unfortunately, on the rise more than ever, where indie authors are pointing the fingers and accusing fellow authors of either their manuscript being written by AI, or their cover art has been made with generative AI, or they wrote their query letter too fast, or it was made by generative AI. It's gone too much out of control. And I would like to hear your thoughts on this, David. And if you have your own experiences with AI, or maybe someone has, in a review or a post, commented negatively accusing you of using AI in any format.
I personally haven't had that leveled against me yet. and I say yet because I do believe it's only a matter of time. There's going to be someone who makes an accusation at some point. I make it over all my social media and my website. I make it 100% clear that I think generative AI has no place at any stage of the creative process. And I stand by that. And you are correct in your assertion, though, that AI, for better or worse, is here to stay. And I think the important part of the conversation about it moving forward is what restraints are put on it in the future. Obviously, there's a lot of dubious things that we don't want to get into about how the programs have been taught to think, what they've been taught with, all that kind of stuff. It's not even worth getting into there, but we need to realize that people will, number one, make honest mistakes from time to time. And we have to give people the chance to learn what those mistakes are and how to fix those mistakes. I'm not a fan of the witch hunts that come around. I'm also not a fan of some who say, oh, well, it's here, so we're just going to go ahead and use it. Which is not to say that I'm a fence sitter in any capacity. I have made very public and personal statements, depending on the setting, about my feelings on it, on using generative AI to write, to create art, things like that. And there's a point where a creative has to decide what kind of creative they want to be. And I think that's where the conversation could head in the future, is just a division of philosophy and a division of mindset. And I don't know what the future is going to bring for that, but I know which side I'm going to land on, regardless of how history progresses.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And from that point, let's now go into my favorite segment, and that is, of course, the business side of being an author. Now, as an icebreaker question for this set, David, I would like to hear your thoughts on what really surprised you about marketing your books. And looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yes, I would have minored in marketing in college. Definitely. But seeing as how that's long since passed as an option, yeah, there's a lot of trial and error with figuring out how marketing is supposed to work for you. There's a lot of people that want to share their opinions for money. And I've spent far too much of my money learning their opinions and learning that their opinions don't work for me. So those are some of my mistakes that I have moved past and am making more of a stride toward finding out how I get to my readers. Where are my readers found? And whatever vehicles I have to use to get to those readers, that's what I'm going to use marketing wise. So far, social media has been great. So far, face-to-face events have been great. And that's I think an overlooked marketing
Yes.
thing is that I'll tell you what, people walk by my booth or my table and they go, "How to Assassinate a Wizard? That's a great title." And that opens the conversation. So I think in the marketing discussion, face-to-face time is really overlooked a lot because it's all about the digital marketing. It's all about the footprint of getting out there, getting the followers, getting the influencers to pick you up, things like that. So I'm still learning a lot. I consider myself still a baby marketer, even after 5 books and 3.5 years of trying to figure it out. I'm nowhere near a system. I'm just going with what I think I and my fellow authors in the community build, which is a community, and that takes time. There's no easy fix.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this next question kind of goes back to a previous question we talked about before when it came down to your writing style and how it changed from your sci-fi novels to your fantasy novels. And it goes into discussion of, understanding our audience. Because I think for us as authors, we find ourselves on this teeter-totter. We want to showcase our individuality and our voice and our style of writing. We don't want to be like everybody else. We don't want to write a book that's similar to, an example, Brian Sanderson, and we don't want to have a book that's too new that's going to confuse people.
Right.
But we have to find this middle ground, especially for the audience, because the audience has expectations of how certain books are supposed to go, whether it's romantasy, urban fantasy, epic fantasy, dark fantasy, or any of the other subgenres. There are expectations the audience is looking for. So for you, David, to assassinate a wizard and to deceive a wizard, how did you balance the two?
So one of the first places I started was really something simple, I thought, and that was looking at tropes. Tropes are sometimes, I think, undervalued because they're overused. But that also opens up the conversation of why are they overused? It's because they work. How do you become a trope? You work. That's the starting point. And the key with tropes is, okay, this idea has been proven to work, and it's worked X amount of times in these comp books that I'm now saying, oh, well, How to Assassinate a Wizard is like this, but I changed this. And for example, How to Assassinate a Wizard, yes, we have a magic school setting. And as I always tell people who I pitch to, I say, but we follow the people who have real problems, which are not the students, they're the professors. And so you get to take a trope and you get to kind of turn it on its head, and but you've given the reader a baseline of an expectation and then told them how you stepped away from that expectation. So you give them something familiar and then you say, but. And that I find tends to pique people's interest because they say, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that too. And then you have a conversation that you can keep having well after they've bought the book. They're now, in a way, continuing that conversation with the book now.
Absolutely. And on the topic of tropes, and this is a perfect fan question, which, in your opinion, are the most overused tropes in storytelling and the ones that are underused in storytelling?
So not to be spoilery at all about the wizard books, but one of my personal least favorite tropes is the reluctant hero.
Okay.
I very seldom like the reluctant hero trope when I encounter it. And I don't have that in this fantasy series. My hero isn't necessarily going out trying to be a hero. He would never call himself a hero. But he's far from the reluctant, oh, I don't really want to do this. Why should, oh, why me? All this kind of, for me, that trope gets stale. And there are only so many ways to twist it. Fortunately, there are more talented writers than me who manage to do it. I just can't do it. A trope that I would love to see more of, though, is, and it's one of the reasons why I've been drawn toward romance books and romantasy books as a reader, is that, and this may be more biographical and thus more personal than anything, is just that in a relationship, in my experience, I did not fight it. I did not, slow play it at all. I was like, listen, and she's my wife now. She has been for 22 years. So I think I did it right. I said, look, this is not something that I'm going to be bashful about. I'm not going to hide my feelings. So I don't really like, or rather what I would like to see more of are male characters, MMCs particular, who are just open about how they feel. I was raised in an era where we were transitioning from no, men don't have feelings to, okay, it's okay to feel some things.
Right.
And literature has led that charge. And so I would like to see it continue doing that.
Ooh, nice. Very, very nice. And now, before we get into what I like to call the rapid fire round, there was one question I did want to ask you, and that is, of course, community. Now, for us as authors, community is very, very huge. We love networking with fellow authors. We love collaborating with editors, narrators, and artists to bring our works to life. So I'm curious, David, are there any particular people you like to give a personal shout out who have either helped you on your way, have been your biggest supporters or cheerleaders, or just by working with them, they've been like so impactful to you?
Yeah, and this has actually been a very recent thing for me. Like I said, we in my experience, authors are can be very socially awkward, and so when you meet in real life, you kind of have to get feel out, hey, is this somebody that we're going to be able to hang out and talk about things and commiserate, being a writer and an author and all that. And the local community here in Middle Tennessee is absolutely amazing. There is a very rich concentration of indie authors here in Middle Tennessee. And in particular, I would love to say that the support of authors like L.P. Brooks, Blair Riker, Lindsay Richardson, and Sage Kafsky, they've been a surprise community for me. They're all romance writers, and I'm becoming one. And just the way that they've all kind of said, hey, no, you're one of us now, I've been absolutely blown away by, because I didn't really have that before I physically plugged into the writer community here in Middle Tennessee. And that was something that, to go back to the community that you build on social media, that's what you miss. You can miss it. The support is great. The support is there, but when it's in your physical space and in your own town, it takes on a different, it just takes on a different category, I guess. And so that's been great, is getting to know local indie authors who literally are, down the street.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that it is very important to talk about, and going back again to like the witch hunt that we talked about before with AI. I think at the end of the day, for us as creatives and as authors, we just need to just band together and be there for each other, because some people in the community, and even I've had a chance to meet them, some of them are very shy, as you mentioned. Some of them are, very, very quiet about their journeys. They're very, very, what's the word I'm thinking of? They're very cautious of who they entrust their work to or share their idea, because they're always afraid that someone's going to take it and use it for their own work. That's a thing that I've actually heard from a lot of authors, that they will not read a fellow indie's work because they don't want to take an idea from it and implant it in their own writing. And I even seen this too, and maybe you've also seen this too, David, is a lot more readers are not reading, trad published books. A lot more readers are choosing to go indie, because the indie market is just absolutely exploding.
Right.
Very true.
Yeah. It's been really cool to see, and there's still a lot of trad stuff out there. The biggest example of the whole indie to trad, dream was, Matt Dinneman with Dungeon Crawler Carl. And the reason I point that out is just because I think what it did was his story and other stories like that, as far as his story as an author, took a lot of attention back to, okay, wait a minute. If he was a gem waiting inside the indie author community, what else is out there? And I think that's got a lot of people thinking. And so they're exploring more, and they're finding that the majority of indie authors love to experiment. We take risks because we can. And there's just a lot of enjoyment to be found there, and more people are realizing that.
Absolutely. Well said again, David. Now we're going into my favorite part of the interview, the rapid fire fan question round.
Okay.
All right. Here's the first fan question. Of the 5 senses, which is the difficult to showcase in storytelling?
Wow. To me, I think touch is actually the most difficult, because we have a lot of words that describe how something sounds, how something tastes, what something looks like. But touch is very, to throw a little science out, because I learned this actually writing a book. Humans can't feel the sensation of wetness. Yeah, with our touch sensory perception, we don't actually have what we can tell is that something is cold and slimy-ish or slick or whatever. So we put it together with our brains because our brains have learned, oh, those things together make something wet. But we actually don't have that touch sensor in any of our biology. So for me, I openly shy away from trying to describe touch at some points because it's difficult. And I don't know if anyone would agree with me, but that's what I've found.
Ooh, I like that approach. I like that. I've had a lot of touch. I've had smell, but that was a good explanation for touch. I like that. Thank you, David. Thank you. Second one. Ooh, okay. I'm glad this person brought this up because it was a fun question.
Okay.
If your main characters had a theme song, what would it be and why? And we'll do like the top 2.
Okay. So I write a lot by vibes, and I actually have the answer to this question, especially for my main character, Kedrick, in the Wizard books. One of the bands that kind of just caught me vibe-wise while I was writing his story is Oh, the Larceny. And their song, This Is It, really caught me for Kedrick's just feel, the way he approaches situations, the way he thinks. So yeah, This Is It, Oh, the Larceny. It is absolutely Kedrick to a T. And then another main character in the books, his name is Dellen. He's a mage hunter. And his is a little more subtle, but it's more of an instrumental track. If anybody's played the Witcher games, there's a track in The Witcher 3 called Cloak and Dagger. And that really became his theme song for how he deals with things. And so for those 2 characters, their theme songs were easy. Anybody else might be a little more difficult.
All right.
Here we go. Actually, I will add, I'm sorry, because it just the female main character, her name is Liadrin, and she actually sings in my head. She doesn't sing in the book at all because I can't write music. But in my mind, she sounds like the artist Colby Calais. And so a lot of her songs kind of pop up when I'm writing Liadrin and thinking about her. So yeah, lots of songs for lots of characters.
Nice. All right. Here's probably one of my favorites. Okay, here's a scenario question. You're given an unlimited budget. You can adapt any of your books or series into one of the following options. Option 1, a 6-movie deal with any actor or director of your choice. Option 2, a series that goes on for 8 seasons based upon any one of your books or series. And option 3, a full audiobook production with some of the best narrators in the industry, including Broadway and theater actors. Which option do you pick and why?
Wow. Okay, that one I'm gonna have to stall on this, because what I will say is I'm a big fan of the show Community. I don't know if you ever saw it, but in that the character Abed would always say that they were getting 6 seasons in a movie. And so if I was going to go with an option that's closest to that, I would have to say it would be the 8 seasons of a television show. But I'll tell you what, that third option, that sounds like pure imagination to me. Just the full-on audio experience of a production like that. So yeah, I'm gonna play this Who Wants to Be a Millionaire style and go C, final answer.
Nice. Very, very nice. All right. Here's the next fan question. Ooh, okay. This is a very long one, so I'm going to try to summarize it as best as I can.
Okay.
This fan question is this. If you had to write in a genre you would never, ever read or write in, which genre would you choose just for the sake of saying you did it and that's it?
I'm going to choose the genre that I think I can't write in, and that's suspense. Suspense I can read and it's great, but I've tried to write suspense, and here's the thing, okay? And it's different from mystery. It's different from mystery, in my opinion, because suspense, you're not always trying to solve it. You're just living through it. But for me, I don't know how to create the suspense that leaves you on the edge of your seat because I know the answer. That's my hang up with it. I know the answer, so I don't know how to be suspenseful about it.
Absolutely. That's the same for me. I'm trying to write a political thriller inspired by Tom Clancy. It's a duology called The Brotherhood of Assassins, which is my own take on the Assassin's Creed lore, but
Okay.
more in line to the traditional and historical assassins, but set in a world where the Assassin Brotherhood doesn't fall to the Mongols during the Third Crusade era, but surviving and just hiding in the shadows. That is one genre that I struggled with, and I don't know if I can get into it. A Western is probably number 2. I would say a Western, like a true one. And actually, no, I take it back. The one genre that I will struggle with is historical romance. And a lot of my friends have argued there's a scene in one of my books, Son of Persia, that they read, and it's a narrator friend of mine, Sophia Dujardot. She read it for like a reading. She was crying. She was in tears because it was the best romance scene of all time. And you could classify it as like it wouldn't be like closed door, but it was very, very like true romance. It wasn't like spice romance.
Okay.
And she even said to me, and you said you can't write romance. It's like, I can't. That's not the genre that I write. I do write some romance inspired scenes, but a full romance book, no, I absolutely will struggle with.
That's fair.
Oh, yeah. And oh, okay. I love this person who sent in the fan question. So whoever sent this in, thank you for it. And you kind of brought this up with Community. If any of your main characters decided to drop by for a visit and they became your roommate despite protests, who would you not want to have as a roommate from your books?
I'm gonna have to go with my actual main character, Kedrick.
Really?
Yeah, I love him. He's great. The truth is, there's too much of me in him for me not to hate him.
All right. All right. Now, here is the second to last fan question. And this one is, again, kind of almost like a reflective question. And I'm going to give some clarification for this one. This one is on which is more difficult for an author to accept, knowing when to stop writing or editing, or knowing when to say the story is finished. And I know a lot of people say that those are kind of the same thing. For me, how I look at this question is, for the first part, knowing when to stop writing or editing, in the sense of the book's going nowhere. You can't write it. No matter how many times you edit it, it's not going anywhere. And you're going to have to start from the very beginning. And even, unfortunately, there are stories that we authors make that we get all the way through, but they will never see the light of day. They just are there as a testament to show our growth. For the second one, I think it's a little bit more personal, because when we say a story is done, that means it's finished. Now, this could be, the end of book one, or it could be a one-off. And that could be in the sense of you don't want to expand further because what you've written is just, it's so pure. It's so good. So for you, David, which would be the most challenging for you?
So I lived a bit of the second one when I was writing my sci-fi duology, the Awaking Nova and a Contest of Wills. It was originally supposed to be 3 or 4 books, and it became 2. It was a duology because I got halfway through the second book and I realized that the story would have to be obviously manipulated to extend any farther, as some of the concepts had already wrapped up. Some of the plot was already, just evolved to the point that I said, no, I can't extend this without making the reader disbelieve, because the reason just won't be there. So it became a duology. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made, because when I got to the end of the second book, I said, that was the actual ending. It was not the ending I planned for. It was not the ending that I thought I was going to end up with. But again, it was a case of the story saying, hey, guess what? You might have started us, but we're finishing it.
Mm-hmm.
So do I read it? So the second one I've actually lived through. The first one, yeah. So if I pick up one of my books and read it now, and I think this is pretty common. I don't think I'm unique with this. Sometimes I'll get a scene and I'll be like, I don't dislike it, but I might have changed that if I did one more edit. And other times I'll read the same scene again and go, nope, that was it. So really it's trusting yourself. It's trusting your past self to have been in a place that you're not in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that trust is very hard, because you want to think, oh no, I'm smarter than past me because I've learned more. But that's not always the case.
No, that is absolutely true. And as we arrive now at the final question, David, of this incredible author interview, with everything we talked about and more, at the end of the day, what do you hope readers and fellow authors will take away from your books and your approach to writing?
So one of the key themes, especially in the fantasy books, in How to Assassinate a Wizard and How to Deceive a Wizard, is that you are not your mistakes. And even if you make terrible mistakes, you still can find a way to redeem something about it. Maybe not a full redemption, maybe not the redemption you thought you would get. But as long as you don't give up, there's always hope for something to happen. And that's kind of the underlying. I don't know if people are, get that on a first read of my books, because my books are very, quick to get to the action and the adventure part of it. But if you pay attention and you look at what characters are thinking in the moment, you might find another layer of, no, he's trying to say something else. And I hope that people start to find that.
Well said, David. Well said. And on that note, everybody, we conclude this incredible author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to our guest, Mr. David Marin, for coming on the show, making his official debut. Now, David, where can people find you on social media if they wanted to reach out and connect, as well as buy copies of your fantasy series and sci-fi series? And as a little teaser, when can people expect more updates on your newest project, your urban romantasy book?
Okay, we'll take those in order. First of all, if you want to find me on social media, I am at DG Martin on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. I'm not really that active on TikTok. I just have it because I have it. If you want to see me on a daily basis and interact with me, hit the Instagram and the Threads. As far as where you can find my books, they are all available on Kindle Unlimited. Cosplayer is making a switch to Kobo soon because I'm trying out a new market. And if you want signed copies, they are all available on my website, dgmartin.com. And as far as updates, I do have a newsletter that you can sign up for on my website, again, dgmartin.com. And right now, I am looking at a release sometime next year on my urban romantasy. I do know the date, but I am not close to announcing it yet because as soon as I do that, something's going to go wrong. And I have hinted at and can go ahead and say I am in the process of writing and putting out a novella that is set in the same world as How to Assassinate a Wizard. That will be out later this year, non-committal to month and date.
Excellent. I will link all that down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode. If you'd like to see David back on the show in an episode of the Writers Hub series, or like to see him featured in another roundtable episode, you know what you have to do. Like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode here. This has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out. Wish you all a wonderful Friday, wherever you are in the world. Happy 4th of July weekend, everybody, and we'll see you all next week.